I'm 53 years old, and when I was 52, I lived a very healthy life. I've always been in pretty good health, and all of a sudden, I started noticing that my legs were feeling really stiff when I would walk, and then I started to have trouble walking. My legs are normally very strong, and I actually fell just by bending down in my closet to pick something up. I couldn't lift myself. I fell, and I knew there was definitely something wrong. So I went to the doctor, and he said, you have to get to the hospital right away. I believe you have what's called Γκιλαίν-Μπαρέ syndrome, Γκιλαίν-Μπαρé, some people call it. And I went to the hospital, and they diagnosed me with it. They proceeded to do a procedure called...
Hang on. Do you know what it is? Yeah, the immune system actually attacks the nervous system. There's inner conflict going on in there.
Yeah, my actual antibodies were attacking my own nerves and causing my legs not to work, and I started getting numb. And so what happened, I couldn't walk anymore. It progressed very rapidly. By the end of that same day that I was admitted, I fell just trying to stand up from going to the bathroom. And I wound up having a procedure called plasmapheresis, plasma exchange, and they put a catheter in my neck, and they had to transfuse all of the blood out of my body and replace my plasma with synthetic plasma, and that's a process that takes 11 to 14 days, so I was in the hospital for that long, and as soon as I went home, I relapsed within 3 days, even worse, and I was sent back. I had to have it again. I wound up being back and forth in the hospital 6 times, and I basically was living in the hospital for 5 months. This is July of 19 through December of 19. They all knew me at the hospital. They saw me coming, they're like, oh, she's back again.
So that's Bonnie as her past self. Make note.
So they changed the diagnosis after I kept relapsing. They say after 8 weeks, they change it to what's called CIDP, and stands for chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy.
You know what that means? You always have inflammation and pain in your body, and your nervous system is the sheaths on the nerves are breaking down for conductivity. And it's happening everywhere. The whole entire body is under inflammation and attack, and the nervous system's demyelinating. And that's why she has all these motor and sensory problems, because the nervous system's breaking down.
So they told me this is a chronic condition and that I was going to have to live with it for the rest of my life, that I might be having to use a wheelchair or a walker for the rest of my life.
How many doctors told you that?
Oh, every doctor who I saw, all the neurologists in the hospital.
So they threw the voodoo curse at her?
Every time they came into the room, they were telling me all the medicines I'm going to have to take and all the side effects that all the things that could happen from the medicines. Plasmapheresis was an option, steroids, and I started...
What are the long-term effects of steroids, docs in the audience? Weaken immune system.
Yeah.
Anyway, go ahead.
However, the first time I was admitted, someone sent me a link to one of Dr. Joe's interviews on YouTube and said, he said, have you ever heard of this guy? And I had not. And as soon as I saw him speak and heard what he had to say, I said, yes, that's me. I got this from living in a state of stress. I have a family, I have money issues, and that's where I was living. There was no other explanation. I didn't have a gut problem. I didn't have a vaccine. I didn't have anything else. I knew. So I knew within myself that he was right, and I was all into whatever he was saying to do. Now, at the time, I didn't have the money to even buy the workshops, the online workshops, but I was so desperate to do it that when we got our tax money, my husband was supportive and said, do it. So I did. And from that moment on, I immersed myself in Dr. Joe's workshops. That's all I did. Every minute that I didn't have a doctor in the room, a nurse, or a visitor, I was doing the workshops. I was watching the videos, and I was taking notes. I was back in school. I was wanting to learn everything that he had to say because he was my inspiration, because I truly believed what he was saying. The meditations I did every single day, at least once, usually 2 or 3 times a day. That's all I did. I was watching the videos, doing the meditations. When I was, paused on one video, I continued to replay meditations that I had. So that's all I did during my downtime. And I put myself, just like Dr. Joe says to do, I was doing everything that he said. I put myself into the state of being healed and felt that emotion. And I remember being in my hospital bed, crying, sobbing, tears streaming down my face out of joy, out of gratitude, of the feeling of being healed. And I truly believed that I was going to be healed, that I was healed.
So then, the body, as the objective mind, does not know the difference between the experience and the outer world that's creating that emotion and the emotion she's fabricating by thought alone. The body's believing it's in a new condition, a new environment. And if the more intense the emotion she feels, the more she moves in the present moment. And that's when energy rises in her body. She touches something divine. She touches a greater energy. And that rewrites the biological program, because the body is organizing genetically to the experience in front of it. Anyway, go ahead.
And there were days that there really wasn't that much time for it, because I had tests I had to have done, or procedures that were being done, or people coming into my room. But no matter what, I made sure I got my meditation in. I did it after everyone left. I woke up earlier in the morning. I pretended I was sleeping when the nurses would come in. I would ignore them because I wanted to do my meditation.
They probably said, "Oh, she's such an easy patient." No victim there. Now listen, audience, do you think there were days she didn't feel like doing her meditation? Guess what? This was her medicine. She took it twice a day if she had to feel better. Are you with me still? You think there were days where she was afraid that she wouldn't be able to take care of her family and do the things she wanted to do and live her normal life because she was a healthy person, followed all the rules, ate the right food, all that stuff? You think there were days where she was gripped with fear and just thought, "Oh God, I may not make it here," and the doctor told me I'm going to be living in a wheelchair? She could have just stopped right there, frozen in fear. But she overcame her fear a little bit that day, yes or no? And there were days, I'm certain, that she was doubtful, but when she doubted, she went back and read the information. She went back and relearned the material. She studied it. She wanted to understand what she was doing and why she was doing it, so when it came time to meditate, the how would have some empowerment behind it, some intention. She could assign meaning to it and get greater value out of it. How many people are with me? You may continue.
Also, when the doctors would come in, all they would give me is all the negatives, the side effects of the medications, all the negative things, and I would in my head go, womp, 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 womp. I was ignoring. And as soon as they left the room, I would play Dr. Joe's tapes, his workshops, and that's kept me in a state of empowerment, of knowing that they're totally wrong and I know what I'm doing. And I would tell them. I told the nurses, I told the doctors even, I said, I'm going to heal myself. And when I do, I'm going to help others do the same.
You just helped a lot of people.
So I also manifested being here because I didn't know how I would ever make it here because I didn't have the money to do it. But I thought I was going to have to be here in order to heal myself. I felt desperate. I have to get to an advanced workshop to heal myself. Well, it turns out that I healed myself anyway.
Did she overcome that belief? Hey, in order for her to overcome that belief, she'd have to believe in herself more. Yes or no? She'd say, I don't need that. I mean, I know it happens at the event, but I'm going to go all in with me. I'm not going to be around all these people and the energy in the room and all that stuff. I'm going to see if I can master myself on my own. That you have to overcome the belief that you can't.
And me being here today is solely the gift of give to give.
Hey, she deserves to be here.
And I'm just making the promise that I created abundance, and when it starts to manifest, I'm giving back and then some.
And she's part of the research. She was randomly selected for the research. We caught a fish. Isn't that cool? Keep going, girl. There's the example of truth right in front of you.
But I lived in a state of fear for a very short time until I was encountered and introduced to Dr. Joe. I was so afraid that I was never going to walk again, that I was never going to dance again. I loved to dance. That I would never run or jump again. I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to do any of these things again. And look at me now.
Now, the condition exists in the old personality. Yes or no? She's somebody else, and she kept overcoming until she became that person. The future her that already existed. She just had to get there. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For living this work. You know what she told me backstage? She watched 400 different testimonials on the website. 400 of them, just to keep her energy up, just keep her belief that it was possible for herself to keep showing up for herself. She didn't talk herself out of possibility because of some feeling, because of some circumstance, because of time, because of the hospital, because of the nurses. It just never stood in the way between her and becoming that very person that was healed. You can program yourself for healing. You can program yourself for abundance. Why wouldn't you be able to do that if you can program yourself for sickness, if you watch enough whatever? Are you listening to me? There goes the 4-minute mile. It's evidence right in front of me. She pierced through the limited consciousness. The doctors are right. That's what happens normally to the normal person who never changes. And the gene is programmed. But she upregulated the gene for health. She downregulated the gene for chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuritis. It's not part of her world anymore. She doesn't associate with that. That's not her identity. The gratitude, the elevated emotion, the clear intention, the believing in possibility every single day. Her body dragged her right into that future. It was programmed into that future. She had to arrive there.